So I just want to say I really like the soundtrack of like the 1986 movie. It's one of my favorite film soundtracks of all time.
Oh, thank you.
But one that really stood out to me is the track titled Escape. And I was just wondering, when you were writing it, what was kind of going through your head? Like, what kind of scene were you visualizing?
I'll admit something here that I don't think I ever said to anybody before. I'm trying to think chronologically when the Van Halen song Jump came on. I think it was that before? I just remember having that song in my head. Okay, so that's what I had that in my head, and I wanted to come up with something that had that sound and that style, and I knew it was going to be driving. But again, writing to storyboards for me was very, very difficult. I really didn't get much inspiration. I was just kind of hanging on, hoping that the music I was writing went with the film when the picture was done. So I drew from a number of sources for inspiration, and I believe for that one, it's progressive rock, obviously, from the 70s was a big inspiration for me. But I think that Van Halen song inspired me a lot for that song. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yep. Thank you.
Hey, Vince.
Hi.
Your music is extremely motivating when I'm down in the dumps and trying to work out, and I need something to pick me up.
Thank you.
My question is actually for any of the musicians in the room, or just for them as well. If you could pick 3 desert island pieces of musical equipment or gear to take with you to a desert island, what would you choose and why?
Grand piano, an acoustic grand piano, not an electric grand piano. Because that's what started it all. I mean, harpsichords actually were the first keyboard instrument, but grand piano had become such a staple since they were created. And as much as I love the electronic music and the electronic sounds, I love just sitting at a grand piano and what it gives back to me when I play. I love that. So that would be my first choice. The second choice is a Hammond B3 organ, because I just love the sound of that, and I'm still amazed at the technology that they used to create that. And let's see, what would be the third thing? Probably a Moog modular synthesizer.
Good choice.
Yeah, it's something that intrigues me. I've still to this day have not learned it well enough to program it myself. I had a gentleman named Casey Young who programmed it for me when I did Rocky IV and Transformers. But that instrument is awesome, and I would love spending the time to get to know that. So that's the 3 instruments.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So we all know how the 86 movie has grown in popularity, especially over the years, but it was also immensely popular when it came out. Were you immediately aware of how many people enjoyed your soundtrack right off the bat, or did it take a few years to start rolling in?
It took a long time. In fact, the movie came out in 1986, right? It was 1997 when I was contacted by an organizer of BotCon, which was one of the first Transformers conventions. And it was Glenn Hallett is his name. And it was Glenn that told me that, he said, he called me up. He said, do you realize that the movie has gained this kind of cult following? I said, no, had no idea, because it was in and out of the theaters in 2 weeks. And, I didn't forget about it, but it was kind of shoved to the side while I went on to other projects. So it took 11 years for me to realize, a gentleman coming forward and saying, not only is the movie, it's achieved cult status, but your score is very well respected. And that really blew my mind, because again, 11 years after the fact, and I remember going to that first BotCon in Rochester, New York in 1997, and the line for getting in the room for Stan and myself was, out the door and down the block outside, and it was almost like, it was very surreal for me, like coming onto another planet to see this. And since then, going to these conventions, you know, all I can say is all of you have been so respectful and kind to me over the years, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. So yeah, I didn't realize, it took me a long time to realize that.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.